Ever since I was a kid, I've had tools in my hand. If I wasn't making something, I was fixing something. I suppose it all started with that trolley, made from a plank of wood and small pram wheels, and then you're off down the hill with brakes made from a stick and a piece of string. One of the first things I ever made in wood was a guitar case. I remember my dad said it looked like a coffin. So I suppose it was obvious I would end up making things for a living. And after school, I took up an engineering apprenticeship, and that set the scene for the next 30 years. In 2004, I decided I needed a career change. Engineering was now about computer screens and filling in forms, so I needed to get creative again. And woodwork had always been a hobby, so furniture just seemed the natural way to go. Not because I had a love of furniture or even a love of wood, but because I need to be making things, designing things. It's all about being on the tools and using your hands. I took 3 years out to study furniture design, but what I came away with, it wasn't a newfound ability to design something wonderful, but the right attitude to design. You see, I don't think design is something you can teach someone. The ability has to be there at the outset, then it can be nurtured and developed. A lot of the skills I have as a furniture maker, really, they're just life skills. The skills you develop as you go through life. Not just how to use tools, but real life things, like interacting with people, and how to look at things and know if it's right or it's wrong. And I must admit, 30 years in engineering gives you a distinct advantage when it comes to making complex pieces of furniture. Most problems can be solved with a bit of lateral thinking, but generally, if you don't know how to do something, the best thing to do is just make a start and figure it out on the way. Works for me. Wood is one of nature's true renewable resources. But that doesn't mean we can waste it. There's enough good native timbers available without resorting to exotic timbers. I confess, I have done the odd commission in semi-exotic timbers, Purdue and Wenge mainly, but I think a piece of native timber can do the job just as well. A well-finished piece of walnut can hold its own against any piece of exotic timber. A lot of makers spend time looking for perfect timber, rejecting knots and splits. But if the defect is used well, it can add to the piece, become a focal point. A well-placed knot in the top of a jewellery box can work wonders. One thing people ask is, where do I get my ideas from? Well, I don't specifically look for inspiration, and I seldom find inspiration in individual objects. I try and keep my design simple. The general concept of the design is important, but if you get the proportions right and the mix of material, then the overall piece generally works well. I think If you use, say, a flower for inspiration for a coffee table, then you just end up with a coffee table that looks like a flower. What you need is not the flower, but what you draw from the flower, the individual elements, the way the individual shape of elements interact, contrast of surface textures, the general essence of the flower, if you like. All designs generate a response, an emotion. Whether it's a good design or a bad one, the response is there. The secret is to make it a positive response. It's about making it all work together. Good proportions and the right materials, that's a good place to start. But functionality has to be a major point. After all, a drinks cabinet is no good if you can't fit a whiskey bottle in it. With commission work, the customer or the location is usually the starting point. But speculative work, that's different. I try not to put anything on paper until I've developed in my head for a while. Sometimes the idea sits around in my head for months. If the idea fades away, then maybe it wasn't worthy of being there in the first place. To me, once it's on paper, it no longer feels flexible. It starts to be fixed. The technical issues get in the way of the design. Having said that, some of my best work has come from just going into the workshop and seeing what timber is on the shelf. Sometimes you just know that piece of timber is supposed to be a cabinet door, or a chair back, or a jewellery box. Being a maker isn't necessarily just about the furniture. It's everything that goes along with it. The tools, the wood, satisfaction in achieving the sharp edge, and then hearing the sound of the plane as it cuts the shaving so thin you can see right through it. I like the satisfaction I feel when I'm driving home. I've delivered a project to the customer. The piece is delivered, the customer's happy, and then it's on with the next one. Like most crafts, being a furniture maker, it's a life choice. It's unlikely you'll ever be wealthy, but it's a nice way to earn a living.